Hey, good afternoon, guys. It's John Davis coming to you with another episode of For the Good of the Game. We are really excited today to have Dale Hellestrae with us. Dale's a Phoenix native. He actually grew up here and played football at Saguaro High School and was an all-state selection in football and basketball as a senior. And then after high school, spent a year at Marine Military Academy before becoming a scholarship athlete at Southern Methodist University, SMU, in Dallas. He was an All-Southwest Conference honoree as a senior while he was at SMU, and ultimately he was drafted by the Buffalo Bills in 1985 and ultimately played for the Bills, the Los Angeles Raiders, the Dallas Cowboys, and Baltimore Ravens prior to his retirement. Now, Dale spent the majority of his career as a long snapper, but he is distinctly qualified and did, in fact, play almost every position on the offensive line at some point or another. And coming out of college as a tackle anyway, he was well suited to do that, which was a huge advantage with the teams he played for. So first of all, Dale, I want to say thanks very much. I really appreciate you being here. It's other than the lunch we had about a month ago, it's been a while. Our roots kind of go back to working together at Football University and doing camps for young people, which is awesome. I want to kind of start at the beginning, as they say, and talk a little bit about, since we're here in the wonderful city of Phoenix and you know, having grown up here, you know, starting back in high school and then progressing on as you went through your SMU years and prior to actually getting into the NFL. What type of experiences do you feel, either starting in youth football or in high school or at whatever level, were most valuable to you as a young person as you went forward, coming up to that point where you went into the NFL in terms of lessons learned in the game of football?
Wow, I mean, that's a wide-ranging question. I mean, I think you learn so much through sports of any kind. Football more, you know, the physicality part of it. How do you overcome pain and injuries, things like that. My favorite sport growing up was basketball because it was less pain and less injury. Plus, it was played indoors and in Arizona, and I was actually better at it through high school. But, you know, the lessons you learn in football, obviously, as a lineman, teamwork, you know, being humble, fighting for a common goal. You know, a lot of things that you find as you get older, that's a big part of success. No matter what walk of life you go into. You mentioned me being a long snapper. That's another thing as far as humbleness in my mind. The fact that I was probably the only combination 8-year-old quarterback, middle linebacker, long snapper. Because when I was 8 playing boys club football, got to be fourth down, and the coach said, just throw a pass between your legs. Little did I know that I would do it till I was almost 40 years old.
That's crazy.
But I look back on it, I'm like, in Arizona, I kind of convey it and look at the same as a catcher in baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to be a catcher in Arizona in the summertime in baseball. That equipment, 110 degrees, I want to play this position, that position. Then you find out, if I'm a good defensive catcher, I don't have to hit 320. Or 400 in high school to get a scholarship, things like that. And that, in today's day and age, back when I was coming through, long snapping was a nice thing. Okay, well, you can do that too, great. But now there's at least a handful, if not more, kids just here in the state of Arizona that get full ride scholarships just to long snap. Just to long snap. And guess what? They can't line up over you. They can't touch you. They can't breathe on you. It kind of frustrates me sometimes. I think my body would feel better if I was playing in today's game.
That's unique because I played catcher in Little League, and I stopped playing baseball in high school, but I focused on football and track. But as a Little League catcher, it was exactly that. And my youngest son went on to do the same thing, and we always used to joke about the nickname being the tools of ignorance.
Yep.
But so that evolution has really brought it to where long snapping now is, as opposed to being maybe a talent back in the day, now it is a skill set, a defined, sought-after skill set in terms of consistency for the special teams game.
Every level I was on, they're like, you know, you go through your first week to 10 days of practice, and then it's like, okay, well, who can long snap? And that was in high school, that was in college. When I got to the NFL, special teams, Buffalo Bills, the running backs coach was our punt team coach. The defensive line coach did the punt return team. There's not a whole lot of focus on it. And then as the years have gone by, it's become huge at all levels. And so when I look at the game today and I look at the high school kids, you used to have to be a big dude because they'd line up 4 guys in the middle and try and run you over and block the field goal, or at least intimidate you so that you might have a bad snap. And nowadays, I broadcast football games on the radio, and every once in a while I'll see a flag, and I'm like, nothing happened there, and they'll say, unsportsmanlike conduct, 15 yards, roughing the center. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Roughing the center? They can't even breathe on you for crying out
that's
loud.
Funny.
Yeah.
That is funny. When you were, I want to come back to that part of that evolution piece here in a minute because I want to get back to the scholarship part. But when you were, this stuck in my mind a minute ago, when you were coming out of high school and you did a year at the Marine Military Academy, what led to, at that specific point in time, going to SMU and them seeking you out, being from Phoenix? I mean, was that one of many possibilities, or was it more of the limitation and you wanted to go to SMU for a specific reason? What drew you to them?
Well, I went to the Marine Military Academy because out of high school, I accepted an appointment to the Naval Academy.
Oh, awesome.
Had an appointment with the Naval Academy, and they looked at my transcripts, and I had decent grades, but I didn't take any accelerated courses. And they said it'd probably make it a little easier transition if you got a little more math and a little more science, plus kind of a quasi-redshirt year, because I was 6'4", 220 pounds coming out of high school. So they sent me to this prep school, and athletically had a fantastic time. Figured out a way to get through the military part of it, but realized as I'm an 18-year-old kid, you go to an academy, it's 4 years of school, it's a 5-year commitment after. At 18 years old, I didn't know if I was going to be alive at 27. I mean, that's like about half my life already.
Sure.
Again. And so I got a little bit of cold feet about going to the Naval Academy, and I obviously got bigger and stronger and faster, and so got recruited by a bunch of Southwest Conference schools, and ended up choosing SMU.
Well, I played high school ball in the Dallas area, and I actually grew up in that area. So I've been, in fact, we played, we used to scrimmage Highland Park High School, right next door to SMU, and so I've been on the campus and stuff. And Gordy's camp, several guys I played high school ball with went there. So it's certainly a great program. Has had periods of being truly great, and at least one period where it wasn't so great. But I think that's awesome. That was, and it's not necessarily every day that you have a laundry list of guys coming out of SMU getting drafted into the NFL. Had you at that time kind of been able to, in terms of your growth and maturity, both as a man and as a football player and athlete, had you kind of blossomed a little bit in that role, and that you think that's what got you the limelight as far as being drafted?
A lot of people ask me, did you go to SMU for the express intent to go to the NFL? And I didn't. I mean, I didn't even think about the NFL until my junior year. Back then, they would actually still send you letters, and you'd get letters from these NFL teams. Hey, good luck your senior year. Got our eye on you. We'll be in touch and contact and all that. And that's when it started to get into my head a little bit. And talking to the offensive line coach, he said, "Yeah, you're going to be drafted, and just a matter of how high and things like that, depending on your season." So that's when I first started getting excited about the NFL. I really hadn't thought about it. I wanted to get my degree, and I love Dallas. Dallas is a great city. There's so much going on.
Sure.
And all that. So, and the whole draft story was phenomenal when I look back on it, because they have these draft projections. I was supposed to go second or third round. Well, back then they only televised the first round on ESPN. So after the first round got done, and I didn't watch any of the first round because I knew I wasn't going to be drafted in the first round. But then time was going by, and you're like, are they in the second round? Are they in the 10th round? You don't know where they are. And and get a phone call, quite a few phone calls in between from friends and family, and get off the phone because there wasn't call waiting back then. And I get a call from the Buffalo Bills. And back then, there were people who would not sign with the Buffalo Bills because they were not a good organization. And I remember the general manager, Bill Polian, saying, "We're going to take you the next pick." And I said, "What round are you guys in?" He said, "We're towards the end of the fourth round." I'm like, because he asked, "Do you have any issues playing for us?" And I said, "What round are you in?" And towards the end of the fourth, I have no issues playing for you because who knows when you get drafted. But fast forward about, what was it, 8 years, get to Dallas. I know the training staff very well, get to be friends with them. One day sit down with them and they go, "Hey, you want to look at your combine packet?" I'm like, "Yeah, that'd be cool." Because, as a player, at least back then, we know how fast you ran the 40. You didn't know the medical checkups, anything like that. And they get my thing out and open it up, and there's a big red X through it. And I'm like, "What is that?" And they're like, "Oh, you were red flagged." And I go, "What do you mean you were red flagged?" And said, they looked through it, said, "Your back, you have a bad lower back, thing called spondylolisthesis." He said, "I bet you half the league red flagged you," which is why you probably slipped from the second or third round to the fourth round, and the Bills took a chance on you and all that. And so it's fascinating to me, all these draft projections and experts and all that. The biggest thing is nobody knows the medicals except for the teams.
Interesting.
And it can knock you down or build you up or anything like that. So the caveat to that story is there were 28 teams back then, so there were 4 team doctors in each room. Start off with room 1. There were 4 guys that pushed, pulled, prodded any injury you've had in your life. Mm-hmm. And I made it through 6 rooms. I knew I had spondylolisthesis, and I didn't think it would affect my draft status, but I knew hopefully nobody would know. Get to the 7th room, they do all the stuff. I get up, and you're walking around in little skimpy gray shorts, and that's it. Mm-hmm. And as I'm getting ready to leave the room, the Chicago Bears team doctor, big red nose, grumpy, says, "Hey, Hellestrae, bend over and touch your toes." So I bend over, he rubs his hand over my lower back. He goes, "We need to get an x-ray on that." Well, that x-ray goes to all 28 teams. And that's when it was discovered.
So the truth.
So I hold a grudge against the Bears forever and ever and ever.
That's great. I at what point in time, as you live through this, and I think this is relevant from the standpoint that there's so much hype nowadays with younger kids. You get, I've talked about this with several other coaches, and you get a kid that either because he is maturing faster than everyone else, or because he just has exceptional genes, is just that much more talented than everybody else, starts to get a lot of hype. And let's say he's in middle school, junior high. And he gets to high school, and all of a sudden, now he starts to believe that hype. And that can be as much of a distraction and bad thing for coaches as it is for the athlete themselves. But at what point in time, you said you hadn't even thought about maybe going to the NFL until your junior year at SMU. Did anybody else ever mention to you that as a possibility? Anybody ever talk to you about, hey, you big guy, you got some talent, maybe you ought to think about playing at the highest level? Or was that always just, I'm loving the game and that's what I'm going to stick with for right now, take what comes?
Well, to me, it's kind of fascinating because I work with younger kids now, whether it's in camps or coaching at a small high school in Arizona or covering high school football on TV. First of all, for me, as a freshman at Saguaro High School, back then, I think there were, 750 in our graduating class, and quick math, that's about 3,000 kids at the school. We had varsity, we had a JV team, a junior team, 2 freshman teams. Well, I show up on campus, and I'm 5'9", 130 pounds.
Wow.
No underarm hair. Couldn't shave to save my life. And I'm looking at these other offensive linemen who are 6'1", 6'2", 6 foot, 205, 210, 215, can grow beards, underarm hair, and you're intimidated. Well, by the time we were seniors, they were still 6', 6'1", 205, because they had blossomed as 7th and 8th graders.
Right. Yeah.
And so you sit there and look at some of those things where these kids get built up in middle school, through their club teams, and because they're physically more dominant than other kids. But I've just come to learn. I always look at a kid's feet. What shoe size do you have? And do you have any facial hair? Baby face, big feet. That's the kind of kid that I like.
That's an offensive lineman material.
Because he's going to grow. And you show up as an 8th grader and you got a beard and you got size 11 feet and you want to be an offensive lineman, probably not going to work. You can enjoy your first couple years of high school.
Well, it's interesting that it's that way. I can remember at one point, for instance, in the All-American Youth Game, it was Canada versus the U.S. and we had a kid there from he was a Samoan-born kid, but he was a kid from the islands who was, as a 13-year-old 8th grader, was like 6'7", 280, and now he dominated that game, and I'm sure did great in high school. And I don't honestly know where he went in college. I didn't keep up with him. But you definitely see the share of both sides of the story. The kids that mature very quickly and are studs early, and the ones that you would think, that end up being studs down the road. I wanted to get at something, and this is kind of more of an opinion question. And I don't know how much you've been following it, or if you've maybe discussed it on your radio show at all, if you guys do sports regularly. But California, about a month ago, the House and Senate passed a bill, and the governor signed into law a new bill that students that attend, athletes specifically that attend California colleges, can now, starting in 2023, can now receive compensation for their name, likeness, and so on. Now, don't necessarily project that that's going to end up in endorsement deals, but it started something with the NCAA now flipping their position, saying, yeah, we're going to go ahead and allow this. Don't know when it's going to, we got to take a look at it and develop the rules. Just as a guy that came out of Saguaro High School here in Phoenix, goes to SMU, plays in the NFL for a number of years, very successfully, I might add. What are your thoughts on that, and what's the good and bad, the pros and cons of what, from your perspective, having lived through that life, and what do you think could happen?
Well, you're probably asking the wrong guy, because anybody who's watching this, if they look back at SMU, if you watch the 30 for 30, it's 1981 to 1984. It's called Pony Excess.
Yes.
Those are my 4 years at SMU. So some people will say that I kind of lived through what they're trying to do. Some guys got money. The better you were, you tended to get more. I'm not saying I ever did. I'm not saying I never didn't. But I'm not saying I did. I just think you open up, and I'm all for athletes getting as much as they can. I know at SMU that I didn't have a car, and a lot of us athletes, we didn't have cars. So it's like, you want to go on a date. Yeah, a pretty girl was obviously important, but the looks took a little step down if they had transportation, because they didn't have a car, So I know that there's kids who struggle. You have a scholarship and you get 2 meals a day and all that, but there is other things that go on in college, sure. and so I understand that part of it. I just don't know how they're going to quote unquote regulate it.
Yeah.
If you're going to tell me it's endorsement deals, that means the quarterback will be able to get some stuff. It means maybe a star wide receiver will get some stuff, or a running back, maybe a defensive guy. There's not going to be any card shops or whatever that are going to say, hey, I want your starting left guard to come sign autographs for a certain amount of money. So I'm kind of anxious to see how they figure this whole thing out. I'm all for the players getting more and as much as they can, because in my mind, if you're telling me that the Alabama football program's bringing in over $100 million, okay, well, maybe share some of that with the guys who are putting out the blood, sweat, and tears.
Absolutely. I think it's a unique opportunity, but I've made the comment before. I believe it's going to bring out a lot of the wolves in sheep's clothing, with guys trying to prey on either parents and or athletes, and I think it could create a dynamic that's going to be exceptionally hard to police. I'm with you. I'm all for it. And what a lot of people, I think, don't realize is the more full scholarship athletes you speak to, whether it's at a major college or not, but certainly in the major programs, just because a person's on a, quote, full ride doesn't necessarily mean that they have carte blanche and everything they need. I know a lot of guys that went through scholarship years in major schools that still struggled, to do what they wanted to do in every aspect. And it is what it is. I mean, we'll see where it goes. I'm like you, though. I really do believe that it'll be a good thing. I want to go back kind of to the start of your pro career. You get drafted by the Bills, and I'd like you to talk a little bit. And there's a specific I love stories that involve struggle. Very few of us put on helmet and shoulder pads when we were younger and said, wow, I always dreamed about playing a game that's hot, sweaty, where I'm probably going to get hurt periodically. I love to play in hot weather and grind it out and sweat. And, football's hard, and you have to develop a love for it, I think, early to be able to continue to enjoy that process as you develop. When you got to the Bills, you dealt with some injuries at the early part of your career, and I thought that I'd like to let you talk through that from your perspective, from going from the Bills to the Raiders for a year, and then ultimately experiencing what some would argue with 3 Super Bowl rings, quite a bit of success with the Cowboys over an 11-year period, when your career may not have started out being, what everybody thought, anybody should be, a grandiose success when you have little minor, and particularly as a lineman and as a long snapper, with the thumb and wrist and all that kind of stuff. Talk to that for a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting because through Boys Club to Pop Warner to high school through SMU, I think I missed 2 games.
Wow.
Through all that.
That's consistency.
And in my sophomore year at SMU, I missed 2, maybe 3 games because of calf thing. So I didn't know injuries. Obviously, you see guys get hurt, but never happened to me. So I make the Bills as a rookie, long snapper, backup offensive lineman. And 4th game, something happened, and I T-fractured my thumb. And so what that means is that the big joint on your thumb, there's a T-fracture through it, and if somebody hits the tip of it, that joint will shatter, and they can't put it back together. So you can't play. So now I'm missing multiple games for the first time in my career. Okay, well, you come back, still a young guy, come back the following year, 2nd or 3rd game, maybe the 4th game of the year. This is kind of a funny story. Get rolled over on a field goal attempt. I'm going to be a smart guy. There's 4 guys that are 280 to 300 pounds. I'm going to break my fall. So I put my left arm down to break my fall. Well, I broke my navicular bone. The funniest thing about that is later that game, continue to try and play, try to snap, tape as tight as I possibly can. One of my only bad snaps in my career went over the punter's head. Came over the sideline, special teams coach said, "What's the matter?" I said, "I don't think I can do it. My wrist is killing me." And he looked at me and said, "That better be broke." But he didn't say it in such kind words. And so I remember getting out of the plane to fly home and looking at my wrist going, do I want you to be broke or not? And, well, it ended up being broke, so I had an excuse. Then the following year, come back, just cutting a guy in a game, falls on my back, blew my back out. So my first 3 years missed significant time. Come back my 4th year, last year my contract, have a really good year. We go to the AFC Championship game. Think you're on a roll now. And then I get exposed to free agency, go with the Raiders, like the third practice, didn't even play a preseason game, stick my foot in the ground, get twisted around, spiral fracture of my fibula, and total dislocation of my ankle. Missed the entire year. So now it's, you're sitting down with your wife and going, maybe it's just not meant to be. There's a bunch of things had to come into focus, and it's like, if you're the team, how many more times are you going to bring this guy back?
Sure.
Because I'm sure that I had the reputation of being injury prone. It wasn't a toughness factor. I mean, they were broken bones. It's not like, there's a little bit of pain here. Can you fight through it? And so come back the following year and have a pretty good training camp and get traded to the Cowboys. And what's kind of amazing to me as I look back, I still maintain the reason the Cowboys let me go in 2000, along with 4 or 5 other older guys, was because I think I played in 178 or 179 straight games for the Cowboys, and I was about 8 behind Bob Lilly, who's Mr. Cowboy.
Absolutely.
And if they'd have brought me back for another year, I'd have passed him. They did not want to see Dale Hellestrae as the most consecutive games played in Cowboys history. They couldn't stand that.
So you're welcome, Bob Lilly.
Yes, exactly. I'll acquiesce to you. So, just overcoming all those things and finding a way, through your faith and through everything that's like, you start to question, and there's some people have to do that as high school kids or college kids. I guess thankfully I didn't have to do that until I was a little bit of a grown-up.
It's interesting you bring that up because I know Sony Michel, who now has enjoyed a fairly, albeit short, a fairly early career with the New England Patriots, came out of Georgia, and he was in the league that was used to be managed by a guy that we both know, Eric Richards, with FBU. And Sony was one that I believe, if I remember correctly, he messed his knee up. I want to say ACL, MCL, when he was in high school. And so for all those athletes out there, as opposed to 20 or 30 or 40 years ago when some of us played, nowadays you can have a little more major injury, and medical technology is such that you may still be able to continue. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm promoting that. That's a decision the family and the doctors and all that have to make. But it does not necessarily mean, Nick Chubb, is another one, is a running back, blew his knee out and comes back and is having a decent career. So it's one of those things. I think that the more important lesson learned and where I get into really more admiration for guys that have been through what you do is because I albeit only through 2 years of college ball, but from the time I was in 3rd grade through that college experience, I played football every year. And knowing that grind and understanding it and playing football in South Texas when I was in college and, similar to being here in Arizona with regard to the temperature, it gives me pause for even having more respect at your grit and your tenacity to stick through those injuries when a lot of people would have said, you know what, maybe it just wasn't meant to be. This is 4 years. I want to play at the highest level. But when you juxtapose that with, okay, well, what do I do now to support my family and all that kind of thing? And I'm sure there's a little bit of pride involved as well. How did that play into when you got with the Cowboys and started a very long, successful 11-year run with them? How did that play into looking back on that now each year that you went forward with the Cowboys as far as your approach to football?
Well, obviously a few things came together. One, I went to school in Dallas, so had friendships there and things like that. I was married. My wife obviously was in Dallas with us. Well, what a lot of people don't or didn't realize the fact that I got traded there the summer after they went 1-15, and everybody in the National Football League was saying Jimmy and Jerry don't know their head from their butt, and they're training in Austin, and with the Raiders we're training in Oxnard, where you have to wear sweats to break a sweat. In Austin, it's 100 degrees with 70% humidity, and you're reading about guys passing out and things like that. So when I first got traded there, had no clue. Thought Jimmy Johnson, I think he ended up making over 70 trades in his tenure there, and I was just another trade. So am I going to be there a day, a week, a month? Who knows? Especially with my injury history. And then I was just blessed from that point on. I didn't obviously there were injuries, but nothing that made me miss games. You saw a team that fought through a 1-15 season, a 7-9 season, to all of a sudden, bam, we're in the playoffs, and the next year we're in win a Super Bowl, and it's like it seems like it happened so quick, but there was so much hard work that went on that you look back on and you go, wow, so that's how it happened. A lot of people tell us, well, you guys were the most talented team of the 90s or that era or whatever, and I'm like, you got to remember the 49ers were really good, the Redskins were really good, the Giants were – there are a lot of good football teams, but the one thing I will always walk away from is anybody who got traded to the Cowboys or came as a free agent or whatever, a veteran guy would say, I've never seen a team work harder, practice harder, and work harder. And that was because our three best guys, Troy, Michael, and Emmett, were our three hardest working guys. Michael Irvin to this day is one of my best friends. Played 17 years in the NFL. I did 4 years of college, 4 years of high school. Never seen a guy work harder than Michael Irvin or have a bigger heart for the game or his teammates. And so it's just a special blend of guys. And then I just got on a roll. And then obviously I played less. I was just snapping.
Right.
Which might have contributed to that too. And, 180 games later, I was still standing.
I think it's unique, though, and notable for the purpose of what we're doing here to talk about the fact that, there are advantages when you have a guy who has the talent and the skill, or in this case, we'll say by that time it evolved just to skill, to consistently deliver the ball on special teams when you need it to, and be reliable enough that it's never an issue. On so many levels, even in the NFL, there are teams where it's always a crapshoot. Is the ball going to end up where it needs to be? And oh, by the way, someone that has the experience and smarts to be able to walk in and play every other positions if need on the line if need be, and that gives the team a huge advantage, from a roster standpoint, which I think certainly served the Cowboys well during your tenure there. So I wanted to kind of get at something that I want to ask each of the interviewees, and it's really about the game of football in general. But as you came up from youth league up through all the way up to and including the NFL, what do you think in terms of when you look back on your career, were there any either defining moments or individuals maybe that influenced at a critical point in your career the way you approach things, or did you stay pretty consistent with a grounded set of rules or goals throughout your football career that kept you going?
I think there were some coaches in Pop Warner who could kind of put me in the right direction. I think probably one of the biggest influences was my high school coach, Bob Keller. Still friends with him to today because he was a guy who we had an All-American quarterback. Still my best friend. Time we were 8 years old to today. In fact, he's trying to get a 50-year anniversary party together of our friendship, which sounds kind of weird, but if you knew him, you would understand. But Bob Keller coaches would come to see him, one of the first Parade Magazine All-American quarterbacks, and he ended up going to Notre Dame, but a ton of schools came to see him, and he talked me up. And that's how I ended up getting on some people's radar. If he doesn't do that, I don't know what happens. I don't know what happens if I don't play basketball. I love basketball. I don't think I was a good enough football player to be recruited Division I unless you saw me play basketball and go, he's an athlete. And you see, believe it or not, at one point I was skinny. Like I literally looked at my mom at one point when I was trying to put on weight and said, I'm tired of eating. And boy, do I rue that day. Because I drive down the road now and just smell McDonald's or something and go, oh, that smells good, 5 pounds. I didn't even get to eat it. My metabolism's gone. And so as I look at people who had an influence on me and my life, those are two at a young age. And then there's probably one experience, I tell my kids that I coach, the fact that as I told you, I'm a better basketball player.
Yes, sir.
We make it to the state quarterfinals my senior year in basketball. I go out and I have the first half of my life. I think I had 24 points and 10 rebounds, and we're up by about 10 with a minute left in the half. I'm kind of tired. I'm not exhausted, but I could just raise my hand and coach would take me out. Well, I did that. Maybe a little tired, but if I can be honest with myself, I just want to hear people cheer for me. First half of my life. Come out, sit down. We go in. We had a 10-point lead. When I walked out, we had a 1-point lead at halftime. We ended up losing the game by 2 points. My high school career was over. And you don't. And what I tell my kids is, understand something, guys. I got to play 4 years of college. I got to play 17 years in the NFL. That's 21 years. I can tell you more about that game than I can the 3 Super Bowls. You pick an NFL game that I played in, whether it's an AFC championship, NFC. I can tell you more about that game in 1980 than I can of anything that's happened since. So, a learning moment for me. And then in college, I don't think there's anybody that had a dramatic impact on me. But I find out, like, after the fact, like my offensive line coach in Buffalo, Jim Ringo, a crusty old Hall of Fame center that used to play with Green Bay. You know, I find out when I leave Buffalo, about 10 years later, that when I was walking out as a rookie to my second or third practice, Jim Ringo was talking to one of the veteran guys and said, that kid's going to play for a long time. Gosh, I wish he would have told me that. I didn't know if I was going to play another day. So anyway, all those names and faces come flooding back.
That's interesting. I think that everybody has somewhat of a defining moment, and it's always it's actually kind of encouraging, I guess is maybe the word that comes to mind, to hear someone that enjoyed your level of success, and certainly anybody that plays in the NFL for 17 years, because, you know, obviously most people joke about the fact that it stands for not for long, because I think the average lifespan right now is about 3.4 years. You know, you don't get there certainly without talent, but more than anything, it's about hard work. And to reflect back on that one game in 1980 and think, wow, you know, and that's not necessarily a positive memory, but one that certainly can spur you on to other things. Mm-hmm. That's a great learning experience. I wanted to I've got one other question we'll end with, but I do a little thing here that I try to do with each of the interviews called the 2-minute drill, and it's just 8 unrelated questions. Some are football, some aren't, and it's nothing super personal here, just off the top of your head kind of stuff, and to get a little flavor of where you stand. What would be, if you have one, your favorite youth sports memory in any sport?
Youth sports memory. Probably winning a boys club state championship at 8 years old. Got to play against everybody around the state of Arizona and won that championship.
That's kind of cool.
That or scoring a touchdown as a defensive lineman in Pop Warner. Flip a coin.
Okay. I love that. It's I had a young flag football team on Fort Knox when I was on active duty, and they went undefeated. And the parents kind of joked, yeah, but this is like 7 and 9-year-old flag football. I said, parents, when you're playing against your peers at any age, being undefeated is an achievement, so don't knock it.
You'll remember it.
Absolutely, they will. Absolutely. Favorite play, if you have one, from your college career at SMU? Was there something that sticks out in your mind?
You know, as an offensive lineman, I don't know if you can pick out a favorite play. I can pick out a favorite moment. It was my last game. We were playing Notre Dame in the Aloha Bowl. My best friend that I told you about was on the other sidelines.
Oh, that's cool.
And we ended up, obviously we had a great week together, but we ended up winning 27-20. And that lasting memory, plus now for 35 years I've been able to just look at him and he knows that I own him.
I love it. Favorite non-football activity you enjoy nowadays?
I love to golf. I used to golf 3 or 4 times a day. Now when I golf, I feel like I just played a football game. So my golfing has cut down to maybe once a week, but I certainly love to do it.
That's awesome. If you have one that you could isolate, and certainly not going to limit you to one, is there somebody that sticks out in your mind as a best NFL teammate? And I think you may have already talked about it.
I would have to say Michael Irvin. I mean, just because of the journey that him and I have been on, the fact that when I got traded there in 1990, you know, if you'd have said, hey, are you going to talk to Michael Irvin? Well, I know Michael Irvin from his University of Miami days,
sure,
and the fatigues and the loudness and all that. I didn't know Michael Irvin, the teammate. And it even, you know, so then we got to know each other a little bit, and we became kind of friendly. Then I come in the locker room, like on Tuesdays, my daughters liked to go there when they were 8 and 5, and they could get gum from the equipment guys and wristbands, and their favorite thing to do was the pop machine and Gatorade machine. You could just push the button and something came out, and you didn't have to put money in it, which they thought was unbelievable. And I'll never forget, one Tuesday, I think I went to the bathroom, and so they were standing there at my locker, and I come out, and there's Michael Irvin talking to them. He just got done working out, and he has them calling him Uncle Michael. And I'm looking at him, and he knows that he's getting my goat a little bit, and he's like, because this is back when he had some issues, and he said, if you guys ever need anything, if you're ever in trouble, you give Uncle Michael a call, I'll be there for you. And I'd look at him and go, Michael, they're not going to be in the jail cell next to you unless you get your act cleaned up. But to today, my oldest daughter got married this past year, and Uncle Michael was there, and
that's awesome.
So it's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Well, I certainly enjoyed watching him play, and I have a lot of fond memories of games that you played in because we used to. My family I grew up as a Cowboys fan, and my mom would make Thanksgiving dinner the night before, and we would tailgate in our RV in the parking lot and then go in and watch you guys play when we had the long run of Thanksgiving Day Redskin Cowboys games when Crazy Ray was still around. And so I have a lot of fond memories seeing both you guys play. Favorite movie, if you have one? I didn't know if you're much of a movie guy.
I'm not. I've gotten ridiculed lately on the radio show because they start talking about Goodfellas, and they talk about movies that I heard of. Like, I've never seen a Star Wars, and they say that's sacrilegious to not have seen a Star Wars. I have no interest in seeing a Star Wars. To me, probably, if you're going to ask me for a movie, I'm gonna pick like an As Good as It Gets with Jack Nicholson.
Good movie.
Or the one where Jack Nicholson and Tom Cruise are, and I forget the name of it. It's the military movie to where
A Few Good Men.
A Few Good Men.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of movies I enjoy.
Well, that's cool. That's cool. You may have already talked about this too. Favorite coach or coaches at any level?
You know, my senior year basketball coach in high school is one of my favorite coaches because he's one of the guys who actually made me believe in myself without him probably even knowing it. When I got to Dallas, there's a special teams coach named Joe Avizano, who's unfortunately passed away, but a guy who I developed a really close friendship with, along with the offensive line coach, Hudson Houck. You know, we were around each other for 11 years, and I became more friends with them. I'm 37, 38, 39 years old, and, you know, these 21, 22-year-old kids coming out more in common with the coaches than I did the young players.
Yeah, that's understandable. Obviously, the really, when you look at the span of time in the NFL and the number of guys that ever reach the degree of longevity that you did, which are few and far between, I would certainly see that happening, especially with the youth coming into the league today. I hate to even ask you. I don't want to. So, based on your earlier comment, favorite snack food?
Favorite snack food? Probably, well, I'm thinking about like when I go to the movies, you know, butter popcorn, a little extra butter never hurts anything, and Junior Mints.
Oh, and that's a good one. That's a good one. If you have one, a single greatest or maybe top game or whatever, but do you have a greatest NFL game memory from your career?
You know, I guess probably two of them. One, pregame of our first Super Bowl in Pasadena, jets flying over, realizing that you're actually playing in the Super Bowl, kind of surreal. And then our last Super Bowl was out here. So I got to play my junior year in a state semifinal game playing Saguaro. We played at Sun Devil Stadium, and then we lost in the state championship game. And now here I am, full circle, getting to play a Super Bowl at Sun Devil Stadium, which was another kind of surreal moment because at the end of the day, our first Super Bowl that was in Pasadena, 92 season, 93 Super Bowl, was supposed to be played here in Arizona, but the Martin Luther King holiday didn't get passed, so the NFL moved it and never thought there'd be a Super Bowl in Arizona. But obviously they got that straightened out, and so that's pretty cool.
That's neat. That's neat. I want to kind of wrap up with this thought. originally when we were naming the podcast, For the Good of the Game was going to be a byline, and it was pointed out to me that it was more profound than what I had thought through initially. So when you look at your career and you starting that playing Pee Wee football and moving all the way up through 17 years in the NFL, and now you look back on, when you're out coaching. I saw some of the kids with the T-shirts on that you put on Facebook, which was awesome. I love that. And you're interacting with those kids at whatever age now, and you reflect back on those experiences from a For the Good of the Game kind of perspective. If you're talking to one of them or to the 16-year-old young Dale Hellestrae, what are you going to share with an athlete in terms of something that they can stick in their hip pocket and carry with them as they go through their career?
Well, I'm going to be bluntly honest, and I don't even know if I'm talking to them. I'm talking to their parents.
Interesting.
I think parents have interfered with kids, put unfair expectations on them, put unfair expectations on coaches. I've just come across too many parents who believe their kids should have a Division I scholarship, and they have no clue what a Division I athlete looks like. If I'm going to be talking to the kids, I always had this thing in my mind. I always envisioned that if I was sitting there watching cartoons on Saturday or doing whatever you do as a high school kid on a Saturday, that the guy I'm going to play against next year or next season, he's out working. He's working out. And I always played mind tricks with myself that I did not want to be outworked by somebody that I was going against. And I just, I think that at the end of the day, I struggle because you're going to have some people who say parents are too soft on kids. I can argue that point too in certain situations, but when it comes to athletics, whether it's putting pressure on coaches, whether it's putting pressure on officials, umpires, and the such, there's a lot of things that go on that you'll look back on. Because I was never a parent that put pressure on my girls. I wanted them to enjoy the experience. But I can't tell you I was a model parent when it came to officials.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, and so that's the advice that I would give to families. And again, love what you do. I mean, it's so hard to play football. If you don't at least like it a lot, find something else to do. You can play basketball if you don't love it, in my mind.
Sure.
You can play baseball if you don't love it, in my mind. Hard to play football if you don't love it.
I would agree. That's a great parting shot. Listen, guys, if you look up the history of the NFL, you can probably realize very quickly that there's a very short list of people that have played for 17 years. And regardless of the position that they play, regardless of the teams they played for and what those teams achieved in terms of success, you're not going to find too many that have the depth and breadth of experience that we just talked to Dale about. And I would encourage you, if you're an NFL historian or a fan of the game, the Cowboys championships, Super Bowl championships, 27 and 28 and 30 were the 3 rings that Dale wears as a teammate in those accomplishments. And I certainly, as a Cowboy fan, not that I'm a hater of anybody else, but I mean, I grew up that way. I might as well be honest. It's certainly a thrill for me to have known you for a while, to get back together and catch up a little bit, and to be able to be honored to have you here as part of this interview today. So I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Enjoyed it. Awesome.
You guys take care, and remember, if you're going to be out there supporting and promoting the game of football, do it for the good of the game. We'll see you next time. Take care.